But Seth Green has a new film, Changeland. It's playing in select theaters. It's available on video on demand. He's one of these guys, Stugotz. We're always talking around here about Drew Barrymore going into cocaine rehab before she becomes a teenager and how child stars end up getting screwed up. But he was not one of them, it wouldn't appear. He seems as balanced as anyone you will find in Hollywood. Seth Green with us. And I don't know, maybe I've got it wrong. Seth, maybe you can help us understand before we talk about Changeland. You have survived weird childhood fame. You seem to have arrived here in a way that's fairly normal.
Thanks.
It's not really a question, but you can speak to how that stuff can be a contaminant early in your life when you're sitting there with Woody Allen. Were you even a teenager when you were working with Woody Allen?
I had just turned 12 when we started that movie.
And so what was that like in terms of starting a career that early? Did you have any normal schooling or any of that stuff?
I did. I went to a public school in Philadelphia that I ultimately graduated from. But I think the biggest factor for me was that I was never specifically famous for a particular role. So where Drew Barrymore got famous for E.T. or even Macaulay Culkin, who's in our movie, became so famous as like the highest paid child actor, I got to work through my entire childhood without ever being specifically known. And so I didn't have that kind of celebrity. I just had success in work. And I also had the example of every other person that came before me, what they did right or what they did wrong. And so I just paid a lot of attention and tried not to fall into any of those traps.
Did it change at all, or when did it change where you did start getting famous for a particular thing?
It was in 1998. I had a convergence of things. Austin Powers came out on DVD. I got made a series regular on Buffy, and I made a movie called Can't Hardly Wait. And when all of those things happened at the same time, all of a sudden people knew my name.
Did your life change much right there?
Only that it was the first time I was playing roles that were romantic or seen as a viable love interest to my peer group.
Were you ready for what came with that?
I felt better prepared for that kind of attention than I would have been if it had happened to me when I was 7 or 8 when I started. But I don't think anyone's really ready to have people recognize you on such a large scale. Nobody really wants that volume of attention, and it's sort of like walking into the lunchroom at school and having feeling like everyone is looking at you or pointing at you or talking about you. It just sort of alters the way you feel comfortable, behaving or acting in public.
How much of Austin Powers was improvised?
I think you can sort of tell. There's little bit. I mean, it was very well written, and then there were opportunities for us to sort of gag onto each other in different in setups. Like we had that whole shushing scene, and Mike pitched that on the day, and then we just kept running it and did several takes of it, and it just got funnier and funnier. And so that opened up a door for us to do that kind of escalating improvisation.
And if you had to assign a percentage to it, if I had to pin you down on it, would you say 10%, less?
That's hard to say, but maybe, across all of the characters, across all of the scenes, across the whole series, maybe 10% would show up.
He has a new film, Changeland. It is playing in select theaters. It's available on video on demand. He is directing it. We will get to that with him in a second. Seth Green with us on ESPN Radio.
Seth, at 8 years old, you co-starred with Rob Lowe. Are you amazed, like I am, that he hasn't changed at all, hasn't aged at all?
It's crazy.
It's impressive. Yeah, he's got fantastic genes. He's always been, staggeringly handsome, and it seems to have only gotten worse as he's gotten older.
One of my favorite movies, and we've discussed it often on this show, Mike, you're going to be excited here, is Can't Buy Me Love. Now, I maintain that the Patrick Dempsey baseball bat scene where he slams it down on the table in the cafeteria is one of the great scenes in movie speeches of all time. No, he was defending Seth, I believe. Seth, do you agree with me?
I really love that movie, and the fact that it's endured so long is a testament to how hard everybody worked on it. Patrick was my first experience with a method actor, and the way that he approached something that could have been so trite or, fluffy and commercial. He invested such a depth of heart and reality into it. I think it really spoke to audiences.
How did you come to be the voice of Chris Griffin on Family Guy?
I just got to audition for it. That's one of those amazing serendipitous situations where I read a script that I thought was incredible and saw that project and wished to be a part of it. And then they just liked my take on it at the audition, and so I got to do the job.
Do you have a proudest thing that you've done, whether it's Changeland because you directed it, a role you played? Is there something in your professional career that gives you the greatest pride?
I really am grateful that I've been able to do this job for the entirety of my life. That's the thing that I don't know that you're ever really satisfied when you love working, but the fact that I've been able to continue to do it, that makes me incredibly happy.
Directing, how did you come by that? Because it seems like it is a real content flourishing time to be in Hollywood, where a lot of actors are getting legitimate power to do things like this.
I've gotten to direct a lot of stuff over the last 15 years, but this was the first time I tried to do a full-length live-action feature. And it really was just a story I was inspired to tell. And it is nearly impossible to gather other people on behalf of whatever your passion is. And so in this case, it made the most sense for me to drive it. No one was going to be able to tell this story the way that I wanted to tell it, and it would have been difficult to translate to another director. So I just always assumed if I wanted to make this movie that I would only be able to make it at a particular cost, at a particular speed, under specific circumstances, and directing it would be necessary. So I was excited to take on the opportunity. And I love the movie. I'm excited for people to see it.
The film is Changeland. It's playing in select theaters. It's available video on demand. Seth Green with us. Take us through, with as many details as possible, how it is that you teamed with Triple H and John Cena to take out Randy Orton's stable, or try to.
That was one of the greatest days of my life. I got invited to be the first celebrity GM of Monday Night Raw, and I set up a six-man tag team between myself, Triple H, John Cena, versus Randy Orton and the Legacy. And, arguably bit off more than I could chew, but ultimately held my own, and then got to save the day with those champions. It was fantastic.
Well, tell us more about the greatest days in your lives that have felt like that one. Like, give us another story that involves you sort of being able to pay homage to your childhood in such a ridiculous fashion.
Well, making Robot Chicken for all of these years, I've gotten to bring in luminaries, people that were heroes of mine, and got the opportunity to direct them and either pay homage to them with the jokes or stories that we were telling, or even just get to be in the room and collaborate with them. That's been incredible.
True or false, Seth Green didn't think he was famous enough to be on Sesame Street?
I definitely had to ask that question. It was 2003, and I reached out to my publicist and said, I've always wanted to do Sesame Street. Do you think I'm famous enough to get to? And luckily the answer was yes, and I got to play a mailman that delivers letters of the alphabet.
That is so cool. Seriously,
it's awesome.
You've had a full career, man. And when I look up in the Italian Job, and you're sitting there for some reason, like you've had, right? That seemed like an unusual casting. I remember when I saw you there, I was like, okay, the Italian Job. That's like legitimate movie star stuff.
You seem so surprised.
It was a great period of time, yeah. Well, I'd kind of made a habit in that period of time of playing tech experts or the guy in the van. And the Italian Job is one of the clearest examples of that.
It will never get better than Chucky Miller, though, man. You know that. It will never get better, Seth.
Oh, thanks.
You were great.
I hope that's indelible, but I hope I get to exceed that.
Changeland, new film. He directed it. It's playing in select theaters, available on video on demand. Thank you. We appreciate your time, Seth.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.